scary stories. I live in a town in California. I can't tell you guys which one because I don't know if I'll regret it or not later. However, I can describe it. We are a very clean town, as in we never have any serious crime happen here, like murder or something awful that would land us in breaking news. However, when this happened, we for some reason didn't get on, even though it's a big deal. Everyone in my neighborhood know each other and genuinely trust each other, so when the house next door told my family that they would be out of town for a couple of weeks and wanted us to watch over their house while they were gone, it wasn't weird. They also gave us spare keys since they have pets in the house and they couldn't take them on their trip. They have a boxer and 2 rabbits and wanted us to feed them while they were gone, so they give us the keys and head off the next day. One of us would go over to the house and feed the pets and then leave. However, on the day that they said they would be back, they didn't. Me and my family assumed that something had happened to their car and they needed time to fix it. Rare, but it happens. The very next day, we find that they weren't back yet. Start to get a bit concerned, so my dad texts the neighbor's dad. Their dad and my dad are friends. But he doesn't get a reply. The next day, still not back. Soon the other people in the neighborhood start noticing that they haven't came back yet. At this point, someone gets the authorities involved. They question people in the neighborhood, like where they said they were going, what car they were last seen driving in, and if any contact was made. Of course, as I mentioned, with my dad trying to text one of them but not getting anything. I remember they said that they were going over to Florida for a boating trip. I don't remember where, but they said that they were going to Florida. A search party was made, both here and over in Florida. Days go by and nothing shows up. While this is happening, you would think the news would be all over this, but no one comes over to report. Because of this, I have no clue where they are, and if anything new has shown up. They went on a trip in the summer in August, and now it's winter in January. I have a bad feeling that this isn't going to end well. Either they are found, either dead or alive, or they are never coming back. But I also feel like there's something bigger to this, like weird stuff is about to happen. If anyone has any ideas to what happened, or if this has reached news somewhere, please let me know. I am a 21-year-old senior in college living with 3 other girls in an old story house. We are located about 15 minutes walk from main campus, and the majority of our neighbors are college students. That being said, this town is notorious for being a little, well, sketchy. Millie is home to one of the first insane asylums built in America. After the majority of it being closed down, abandoned for years, the final building was shut down about a month ago, and the remaining patients were released. Now I doubt this is directly correlated with my creepy experience, but I am not the only one who has interesting encounters with strangers since their release in this town. 2 nights ago, after getting off work around 11:30, I came home to my roommates getting ready to go out for a night out. I realized how stupid it was, but we often had an open door policy, free for anyone to come over and visit as they please. We would lock the door at night, but the one time we forgot really came to bite us in the ass. Around midnight, I was hopping in the shower as my roommates were headed out the door. We said our goodbyes, and I told them I would be meeting up with them later. I had just stepped out of the shower when I heard what sounded like the front door slamming shut. I automatically assumed one of the girls had forgotten something, so I call out their names. No response. I then hear footsteps in the hallway. I call out again. No response. Fear and dread came over me, and I immediately grabbed my clothes and ran into my bedroom. I threw my clothes on, leaned my ear to the door, and waited in silence. to hear if someone was in the house. I hear nothing. I decided that it must have been one of my roommates grabbing something and leaving again, so I head into the living room to get my phone. 6 missed calls, and it's still ringing. My roommate, Carrie, was on the other end. I answered and immediately could hear the panic in her voice. "Lee, are you in the house?" Me. "Yeah, Carrie, why?" "You need to get out. Sam drove by and said a man saw us walking through the front door. He called the police, but you need to leave." I shit my pants. Nothing was going through my head besides more adrenaline and fear. I wasn't sure of the man's intentions, but I sure wasn't going to wait to find out. While remaining on the phone with my roommate, I bolted out the front door and hid behind my car. I watched the house from afar, waiting anxiously to see any movement. My thought process was not at its finest at that point, and I realized I probably could have made smarter decisions. As my friend approached in a truck, I sprinted out from behind my car and jumped in the back of their truck. Just as I did, a dark figure scurried out into the woods, running in the opposite direction. I can only assume he had been inching closer to us as I was waiting for them to arrive. I screamed bloody murder, and we floored it out of there. I refused to go back into that house until the police arrived, and it had been triple checked. There were no signs of anything being touched or stolen, which makes me wonder what the man's intentions were. You can guarantee that I've locked my door every night since, and to the stranger who walked into my house while I was in the shower, let's not meet again.
My sister has been dating her boyfriend for 3 years. She told me that in 8th grade he stalked her, just staring at her in the halls and asking about her schedule. I met him about a week after she told me this story. He seemed nice at the time. We talked for a bit, then he asked me if I wanted to play Call of Duty. We played for about an hour and had some laughs. I didn't find anything off-putting. He seemed to be a generally nice guy. However, that was 3 years ago, and these past 3 years, he has been getting weirder and more obsessive, as in, he would constantly call my sister to ask what she was doing, with hundreds of texts when she didn't reply immediately. They had multiple breakups and arguments over these years. Just a few days ago, my sister's friend came to us hysterical, stating that he had threatened her, that he had threatened my sister's life too, but they are still together to this day. She also stated he probably had bugged my sister's car and phone because he knows all the texts she has sent and showed up at her house when my sister's car was parked in the driveway. He didn't even know where she lived. I am convinced that her car is being traced. He even managed to track us down when we were with my grandparents on vacation. This all changed about 2 days before our vacation to California. I'm one of those people who stay up really late at night, even though it's a school day the next morning. I usually binge watch videos on my computer while lying in my bed. It was about midnight on a Saturday when I heard a faint screech. The sound was vague and distant. I brushed it off and continued to watch my videos. Then I heard a soft sound of a garage door opening. I assumed it was my sister coming home late, like my dad predicted. He left the garage door unlocked because he expected her to come home late. I heard smooth and soft footsteps walking up the wooden stairs, and then a shallow grunt. The footsteps slowly moved throughout the upstairs while I paused my video and sat up in fear. My sister would usually not care about being so quiet and went straight to the bathroom to take off her makeup. The soft footsteps ensued. I would like to now mention that I do have a lock on my door. I convinced my dad to get me one 2 years ago because I am paranoid about someone attacking me by simply opening the unlocked door. I could hear footboards creak as the footsteps neared my door. I heard a hand graze the frame of my door and grab the knob tightly. I held my breath, and my hand started to reach towards the wooden baseball bat I had under my bed. The doorknob turned slightly, but the lock restricted it from turning all the way. The intruder on the other side jiggled it a bit and ceased. I grabbed my baseball bat and gradually made my way toward my door. I saw two gray shoes inches away from my door. I raised my bat defensively, ready to whack whoever picked the lock or busted down my door. The shoes slowly turned and strided away from my door. My sister's door opened, and a few moments later, I heard footsteps exiting and steadily walking down the creaking and protesting stairs. I dropped my bat to my waist and walked back to my bed. I pulled a chair to barricade my door, just in case, and breathed silently to calm down. My phone was out of battery, so I couldn't call the police, and my mom and dad were on the other side of the house. I would make a mad dash for my parents' room, or I could just scream at the top of my lungs and hope they wake up before the intruder gets to me. It may also scare him off. So I screamed. I screamed as many blood-curdling cries as I could. About a minute later, I heard heavy footsteps rushing over and unlocking my door. My dad opened the door with a look of complete concern and dread. He asked if I was okay, and I told him there was someone else in the house. He grabbed my bat and hurried downstairs. He came back up a few minutes later, checking all the closets and general hiding places. He ordered me to go back to bed and lock my door. I complied. I was wide awake for half an hour, but eventually somehow dozed off. I woke up to find my dad talking to my mom in the hallway. He told me the garage was pried open with some kind of rusty tool or crowbar. The intruder had left a note in my sister's room saying he didn't know where she was and that he missed her. I knew immediately that it was her boyfriend. What disturbed me the most was when I looked at my phone, it had a new message. I had wrote a message to a number I have never seen before late at night. The only problem was I hadn't texted anyone last night, and there was a response. It read, "Merry Christmas." There's one problem with this. I haven't sent a message to anyone with this number in my life. And my phone, it was in my room last night.
So a bit of backstory here. Not sure if this matters, but at the time of the incident, about 6 months ago, I was 21. I worked the evening shift and usually make it off around 11:30 p.m. After leaving the parking lot of my job, I take a right, then an immediate left at the light about 300 feet up the road to go home. On this particular night, everything seemed normal. As I pulled up to the red light in the left-hand turning lane, this intersection is a block away from my very large university, so it is usually pretty busy. This night was no different, and I wasn't the only car waiting at the light. There were two turning lanes, and there was a car directly to my right, also waiting for the light. As this light tends to be a particularly long one, I began browsing through various apps on my phone. I suddenly hear a familiar sound from the rear passenger side of my car, that little thump when someone pulls the handle of the door. I immediately whip my head around to see a man peering into my window, still attempting to open my locked door with a wide grin on his face. He appeared to be in his mid to late 30s, was balding and wearing a tattered wife-beater tank top. Sorry for the crude name, I just don't know what else they call it. His teeth were cracked and yellow, apparently from drug use. I immediately stomped
on the accelerator and run the red light. I see him in the rear view mirror, just standing there, staring at my car. I called my best friend, who I also happened to work with. She was working the night shift from 11 to 7, and I told her to inform our supervisor. The supervisor called the police, who then ended up contacting me for a statement. I described the man as best as I could, but I only saw him for a few seconds. I never heard back, so I'm assuming he was never found. After this, I never leave work without walking out with one of the other girls. I am so grateful that my car doors automatically lock when the car is put in drive. Otherwise, he might have actually gotten in. The thing that still bothers me is that I know there was another car right next to me. They had to have seen what was happening, maybe even saw the guy walk up, but made no attempt to help me.